I think the difference it makes to be a leader, to work and to act as a leader, is to hear the person you're talking to. Because I have always read about this golden rule. You have one mouth, you have two ears. You have to hear the person who is in front of you and not talk so much. You have to hear what are his or her problems. How can you help this person? That's not only in the medical field. As leaders, we have to hear people more and maybe talk less. I think that's my message to people who want to overcome their difficulties. First of all, listen to people and do not talk so much.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CEO Podcast. My name is Mario. I'm your host together with my partner, co-host, Professor Alberto Arbex, where we talk with today's CEOs about different issues, problems, and challenges that they face. Today's guest is Professor Alberto Arbex. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A CEO, a leader in the medical field. Alberto, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Very glad to be here.
Good to have you here. So let's kick off this conversation. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, growing up. Before we started recording, you told us you had leadership aspirations. You speak 7 languages. So give us a little background on you growing up.
Okay, I have always wanted to become a leader since I was young. That's something that I always wanted to do to help people. That's my main goal. I'm now an endocrinologist. I was a CEO for 15 years from a big company, and I have been a professor and a visiting scholar at the Harvard University. But that was a long way. So when I was always gathering more informations and learning more, I always saw there are many people who come together and go the way through difficulties to get better positions in their life. That's why I have always been trying to overcome difficulties together inside a team. When I was 5, I could speak Portuguese, then I started learning English. But then I started also learning Italian, French, Arabic, Latin. By 13, I could understand 5 to 6 languages.
You wanted to become a leader?
Yeah, that was my goal, to become a leader and to help people on this way, and also when I get to these positions. In my whole life, I have always had leadership positions. At school, I was a representative in medical faculty. I have also been class representative, always trying to help people, but also learning from and with people how to help people in their daily lives.
What is it that you think made you show up as a leader? Why were you the chosen one, so to speak? What is it about you that you wound up like that?
I think the difference it makes to be a leader, to work and to act as a leader, is to hear the person you're talking to. Because I have always read about this golden rule. You have one mouth, you have two ears. You have to hear the person who is in front of you and not talk so much. You have to hear what are his or her problems. How can you help this person? That's not only in the medical field. As leaders, we have to hear people more and maybe talk less. I think that's my message to people who want to overcome their difficulties. First of all, listen to people and do not talk so much.
I read an article by the man who wrote a famous book called Search for Excellence, Tom Peters, about the best run companies in America. He did research and they found out that the doctors who interrupt the patients less have a much higher survival rate from their patients than those that interrupt within the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, survival rate is an interesting thing. You can interpret in different ways. But here at this small clinic I found here in Germany, at Google we have 4.9 stars, which in Germany, it's a very difficult thing. The clients, like our patients, they are very selective and they want everything all the time, at once, immediately. It's very different from America, it's different from Brazil. They are well educated and they want everything at once.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, for me, when I was looking at your profile and when you and I exchanged a little bit of messages before the podcast, you began running a company, and I'll try to pronounce it Afia.
Yeah,
If
that's
I
it. That's how
okay,
you say it.
and you took it from early beginnings, right? So it
Yeah,
wasn't a big company, and then you grew it to 10,000 people.
yeah.
So one of the things that we like to explore here is what we think is the bread and butter of every CEO, and that is his or her executive team. So tell us a little bit about how did you select people for your executive team, and what is your advice for, let's say, newly minted CEOs or newly appointed CEOs when it comes to their executive team?
I think you have to be surrounded by good people. I always say you have to be surrounded by people that are better than you. And when you find these people, you have to show them how important it is to work on the same goals, looking in the right direction, the same direction. Because when we started at AFIA, as I told you, we were 5 medical teachers and 10 students. And the team was growing so fast because there were so many colleagues who also wanted to become specialists in our field. And at the same time, I had so many colleagues who were, as I tell you, I think, I see they were better than me. But they always thought, no, you are the boss, you are the CEO, you are the leader. I said, no, we are colleagues with the same mission, with the same goal. So you have to gather people who want to make the world better. It sounds like an obvious thing, but people who can work together and who see the same goal inside a team.
Robert and I have a friend. Robert, I'm referring to Tom. And our friend Tom was a CEO of a $5 billion company when he exited, or when he stepped down as a CEO. And he says, I spent 70 to 80% of my time on alignment within my executive team. So I think you're spot on there. The only thing worse than not having A players on the executive team is having A players, but not having true north in one direction where all of us go.
I think that's a very dynamic story because when we gather good people to work within the team, you know very quickly if they are on your side, if they're working with you. And it's dynamic because every time it's changing. There are people who sometimes in some months or some years have more time, have more attention, are more focused on doing their best. And sometimes they need a pause, they need to go somewhere else. Then to some years thereafter, they come back and they are 100% by you again. So it's a very dynamic game that you're playing all the time.
Sometimes the people are not by your side or working with you. They might be working against you or indifferent.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
fire people when they get like that. How do you handle those situations?
In my teams, it was always a natural dynamic that was running because we, on the core of the team, we knew it when a member of the team wasn't working within the team anymore. So this person, because it was very dynamic and every month we had classes in the whole land and also abroad, we knew who should we call and who should we invite to teach more, to make more decisions, to grow with us. So because it was very dynamic, every week and every month we could decide who would take part and who would not take part at this growing process. I'll give you an example. Every year we took some colleagues to Harvard to make like a postgraduate course. And then we knew the colleagues that had the chance to have this opportunity. I had to make these choices. This guy is good, this one maybe not so interested. So every year, and those who were interested, they came to me and said, Alberto, I want to go next year to Harvard and I'll do my best for this. That's already a sign that they're with you. And when you're like, as you told Robert, when they start to play against you, or maybe not against, it's a strong word. Yeah, indifferent to that.
I would argue that's worse because if they are quote unquote working against you, at least they have some energy, they have some direction, they have an opinion where they want to go.
Yeah.
Okay, they may be not agreeing with you 100%, but if they're indifferent, I think that's worse.
I know what you mean, but sometimes the company needs people who really work, who really make things done. And when they make things done and they are indifferent, but it's making the flow, and sometimes we need these people. We can't have all the time engaged people, like 100% engaged. We try, we go to this direction, we make like dynamics, we get people together and say that's the goal for this year. And that's what I always done every beginning of the year, January, February. That's our goal until December. That's what we want to do. What are your ideas? So I opened this to the team. Together, I was always gathering more information about our destiny, where we wanted to come at the end of the year.
For me, it was really fascinating to see, and not a lot of people do this, right? So, from running big companies, 10,000 people, right? And then going into a very small clinic in the north of Germany. So, how did running a very small clinic shift your perspective on leadership, on working with people, and generally serving customers?
That makes a great difference because I was dealing with complex processes involving thousands of people in different cities, and
Yeah.
the last years of my life I have been working with, as we talked about it, about bureaucracy, about coming the German citizenship, focusing at this clinic because when I arrived I wanted to give my family the best they could give. And since we are in Germany, we wanted to become German citizens. I wanted them to go to the best schools. At the same time, I had to have something for me. I wouldn't accept to be employee everywhere like in the past. That was not a choice for me. So I said, I'll take this clinic, I'll make it big, I'll make it grow, and then from this place, I can go to higher places and say, yeah, I already have this experience. I have now a clinic and now I can grow inside Europe.
How would you like to grow? Are you saying you'd like to scale your current business?
I want to make other companies grow just as I make this company grow in Brazil from like 10 to thousands. That's my idea. My idea is to make companies grow with my experience in
You
this
mean
field.
your particular company, your practice in Germany, other people's companies?
Ah, that's a question. I'm not sure. I'll wait for the opportunity to come or I'll look for an opportunity. I'm
Well,
not
I think,
sure.
yeah, if you really want to do that, I think best guess is, so
Yeah.
maybe questions you want to ask yourself is where, what part of the world you want to do this.
Yeah, yeah. There are many opportunities now in Switzerland. It's a good country
Ah,
to live. I have some
yeah.
invitations already. I've been there for 2 years and they gave me a contract, but I spoke with the family and they said, no, Switzerland, not yet. Let's wait 1 or 2 years.
Are you sure you're Portuguese or Brazilian? This is such a German response. So let's wait for 5 to 10 years just for stuff to settle a little bit, and then we can then decide, maybe.
Because Germany is like a social democracy. I
Yeah,
thought it was like a capitalist country. It's not.
no.
So, no, you can't grow in Germany as much as you can grow in Switzerland, for example, because
Yeah.
Switzerland is very focused on capitalism. So, I think that's a better way for me. Now that I'm integrated, I have everything. Now I can go to other ideas and other plans.
You said something when we were talking before that becoming a leader is not something that is determined by your DNA code or your IQ or your level in society. What's your message about leadership to people?
I think you can learn to become a leader. You need the will to become a leader. You can learn from other people who are leaders and already have this experience and this opportunity. But I see leadership as a teamwork. It's not a work for one person. It's a teamwork and it always works best when you're in a team who has the same goals. I think also in that idea we're talking about many countries and many cultures. To become a leader, you have to adapt to different situations. So in the past, I was a leader for 10,000. Now I'm a leader for some 50 or so. And we have to adapt because now I'm one-on-one with patients, and before I was like managing the system. I don't have a problem adapting to it, but I would like to adapt again to a bigger figure, to a bigger situation.
Yeah. Well, since you think, you correct me if I'm wrong, you ran AFIA from 2006 to 2021, right?
Yeah,
Something like that?
yeah,
Yeah. So, 2008 financial crisis, then, budget cuts,
yeah.
inflation, and then bam, COVID hits. So, like every CEO should have or must have a good, we call it a crisis playbook. How did you weather these storms but still managing to grow your company?
These crises, they belong to the system. So there's something we have to wait for them. They will happen. It's a matter of time. But when they happen, I have three focuses. The first one is to stabilize the team and to tell them, just wait and things will get better. The second thing is to focus on the client. So the client at that time, they were telling, it won't work. I can't pay anymore. I can't buy anything anymore. And then we have to work on this one-on-one, communicate, and let this information get to your client so that it will work. And then the third thing is to adapt. You have to adapt to a crisis. In a crisis, not everybody is able to work as they worked before. So we have to adapt, because after a crisis, there's a new situation coming. And this new situation is coming, so you have also become a new company with new goals that were like somewhat different from what you had before.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed from your background, looking at your profile, was that you seem to be very good at networking. You had a track record of bringing groups together for conferences, bringing people together from other countries. I'm curious, what can you teach people about that? Because I know for myself, I think my worst trait is networking. Because I love to sit down at the computer and write. I wake up every day and start writing. But when you're writing, you're not out there shaking hands or having a cup of coffee. The same as being a researcher. So, what can you tell us about networking that would be empowering for people?
I'll give you some examples, Robert. Exactly, as a researcher, I always work in teams. And then, for example, the medical journals, they are looking for content to be published. And they give these invitations to me. You are the professor, you are the CEO. We want from you these products to be prepared. And I gave it again to our students, to our colleagues, and I said, I won't do this alone. I want you to be first authors, and I'm the last author, so I can support you in making these works. And that's how it worked with networking. When you give colleagues, when you empower them to become better colleagues, then they publish, and their name is at first, and my name is at last, supporting their work. Of course, they would write. I would correct it. At 3 a.m. I was correcting work while everybody else in the family was sleeping. But at the end, the works were published in their names with my support. So this is team working that lasts for the whole life. These colleagues, they are thankful that I helped them to grow as much as I grew. That's how team working is. That's how I see it. That everybody can grow, can develop, can become better, but not alone. Not like I have the best part of the pie and the other ones have the smallest pie. Everybody has a place on the sun. And that's what I always struggled to work with.
Your approach to networking is creative collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite authors, Steve Chandler. Robert, I don't know if you know him personally or not, but there is a phenomenal sentence from Chandler. He says, we are all angels, but we have only one wing. And the
Yeah.
only way we can rise to the heaven is on the shoulders of others. And I just love that quote. That's phenomenal. It's funny you mentioned young talent. So you probably met, I don't know, thousands of doctors, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not overstating. So how do you know out of these younglings, right? I call them younglings or Padawans. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, so I use Star Wars references. So how do you notice this is a future star? What are you looking for in these young people?
What I see every day are many people around us who don't know their potential to become leaders, to become better people, to grow, to develop, and to learn about how to become better in life, how to get more information from the right sources. And it's in our daily lives. We see all around us. We see people with curiosity. We see people with resilience. Yesterday, my son, he's 15 years old, I explained to him what resilience is. And he didn't know what this was. And I said, a leader must have resilience. But when we get colleagues who are very good in what they do, very good doctors, very good teachers, very good CEOs, very good managers, but they don't know how much they're able to do and to change. So you have to come to them and tell them, you were good at this, come with me, I'll show you the way, I'll pave you the way so that you can grow. They are thankful for the rest of their lives, but I don't see it like I have done something better than others. I have just saw what they themselves didn't see inside of them. This curiosity, this will to become someone better than they are. Many times I told students and colleagues in front of all the teams, I told them, you can take out my place and that's very good. I always told colleagues, when the student becomes better than the master becomes so glad because his work gave the best fruits, the best results.
Yeah. Robert is very big on the master apprentice relationship. I would love to be a fly on a wall when you explain to your 15-year-old son what resilience is. Like my 15-year-old son, all he wants to do is be on Instagram and chase girls. He doesn't care about school. He doesn't care about anything else. He just want to be on his computer or Instagram and chase girls. Like resilience? It's like a default answer.
Let me give you some impressions. I could talk about my son. My son just wants to get all A's, and he's not interested in girls. So I said, why don't you show some more interest in girls? But anyway, I'm talking to you, and I'm having a few thoughts because I'm what they call a people watcher. And you made me several times think of Marlon Brando, one of the famous actors of our times, maybe the greatest. After he made a bunch of movies that were big hits,
Yeah.
he told people, I don't see the future as just making bigger and better and more movies. That's not the most meaningful thing to me. Well, if you look at most people who go into CEO jobs, they always want to go from one CEO job in a smaller company to a CEO job in a bigger company to a CEO job in a bigger and bigger company and wind up billionaires. Very few of them would do something like you have done, downshift from a 10,000 person company to a doctor's office. That to me is very interesting. And I think it might be interesting. One is you wanted to break through a barrier. Why did you do that? You told me you wanted to break through a barrier of being in a small market, Brazil, relatively small market. Brazil's a big country, but it's not a global market. You're willing to change from being a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a much bigger pond. So that shows you have a lot of courage.
Thanks.
I think you draw your identity not from what you achieved in terms of money and power, but from your ability to create your position, to become the CEO, to become a leader, to become a judge. I think you draw your identity more from your ability to create something than the status that you've necessarily achieved.
Exactly that. I don't care about status. What I care about is that within 10 years, I have colleagues who would say, I own so much of what I did because 10 or 15 years ago, I had a teacher, I had a CEO who told me I had potential. And then I saw it in myself, in front of my mirror, and then I grew, and now I am CEO, chief, president, minister. That's what I want to see, that people develop themselves.
One of the concepts that we like, I took it from a guy at Dartmouth, Sid Finkelstein, Super Bosses. He said, the kind of leader that we need today is a leader who helps people be more, achieve more, and have more than they ever have possible. So I like people who have a passion for that, who have a passion for masterful coaching and mentoring. I like them even more than I like people who have a passion for money and power. which is a different type of leadership. So you strike me as being this kind of person. It's very interesting. I think you're probably a rare breed of the people I've run across over the years who all just were chasing money and power. You're chasing helping people to be more, achieve more, and have more than they ever felt possible.
Because after all, when we help people, we get helped. When we make people feel happy, we are also happy. And of course, we need money to survive, to buy good cars, and to have a good life. But that comes naturally. And I know that this time, when my son is 15, my daughter is 13, I know when I'm now with them, I won't regret this time. And when they grow and go away from
Oh,
home, then
yeah.
I
Yeah.
can go and make my life and I won't regret this time because I see, oh, as a doctor, I see many family stories. And when the father is not so present, things happen. And that's something I don't want to make happen for me. So I told my 15-year-old, he said, Papa, I want to be like you. I want to grow and develop like you. I already can speak 4 languages and I will grow. And my daughter, she's 13. She's speaking now 5 languages with 13 at school. So I think I could be an example for them.
Have you ever helped anyone else become a CEO of a company?
Yeah, for example, that I wrote this last week. I have a good friend at school, at childhood, who is also a leader. He has always worked and learned to become a leader. He has become one of the positions in the same company I left 3 or 4 years ago, and now he's a CMO of this company. And I wrote the day before yesterday congratulating him and saying, I helped this company to grow, and now I'm sure it's gonna overcome and become even more better with you. And there's also a colleague who I had as a student at class, and now she's a leader of medical colleagues in a state of Brazil. And sometimes she writes me, Alberto, you made me become what I am now. And there's also a teacher from another company who says, Alberto, that's because of you that I'm here, that I make a doctor degree, that I'm already a leader for 50 professors, because of you, because you believed in me. So this is gonna happen even
Yeah,
more
so you're
frequently.
defining leadership and CEOship as helping people realize their hidden potential, helping people build a great team that collaborates, and helping other people, period. As opposed to most people define being a leader, being a CEO by how many billions does your company make? How many people are there in your company?
Yeah.
How many countries does your company do business in? So you're helping to redefine our leadership paradigm here, which is very good. However, there must be something wrong. There must be, you couldn't be perfect. What is your limitation that you bump into?
My limitations is that exactly when I go through different cultures, Brazil, America, and Germany, I have to adapt to the systems. And maybe some informations and some things that are handicaps in a situation are not so good in other situations. For example, if I can work well with teams, but in Germany, team working is good, but it's not the best because here they value a lot the work over time, over years, over decades. That's what they value most. When I came here to Germany and I said, visiting scholar at Harvard, so many languages, everything works fine, more than 50 scientific papers published, they said, for us, that's nothing. We want to see if you can work, if you can make a clinic, if you can contact the patients, if you can help us. If you can help us and if you can endure and stay longer, then you have a value for us. So I think it's different among cultures. What's important, what makes a difference. In Brazil, you have to be very social. You have to go to parties, you have to laugh. In Harvard, you have to be very focused, evidence focused. It doesn't matter if you're a nice guy. At Harvard, you shouldn't be a nice guy. You should be focused on goals. You should be evidence based. So I think that's my handicap because I have to adapt to different situations.
Now, another question I have about you is, do you have a big enough ambition? I look for people with big personal and organizational ambitions that are out to change the world in some way. I'm talking to you, I don't know if you have that or not. And that's something in background conversation. Does he have a big personal and organizational ambition? Maybe he does. Maybe right now he's just in a transition, so you can't see it. But does he have a big enough personal organizational ambition? An organizational ambition that's big enough that he's one day going to do something that really changes the world.
Yeah, I have always had this, and my goal is to clarify and explain to people how medical and complex things are. That's my main goal in my life. It's like to make complex things simple for people. It's to explain to them in their language how does it work for diseases, for systems, for societies, for politics, for example. That has always been my goal. I'm not sure, maybe I'm in a transition phase. I have reached everything I wanted. I went to Harvard, I live in Germany, I have a family, I have been CEO for thousands of people, but maybe that's a transition phase.
Well, that's what I said. Does he have a big personal and organizational ambition? He has the credentials. What's one transformational goal that he would accomplish in his life that would make for a life well lived, a life that mattered?
Yeah.
Well, I really don't have any questions left. And we are close to getting to the end of the podcast anyway. My comment is only, you are a fascinating man, fascinating leader. 7 languages spoken, one of them being Latin, if I remember correctly, which is, oh my God, who speaks Latin? I only speak Serbian and English and a little bit of German and a little bit of Hungarian and a little bit of French. I'm not fluent. I can just speak a little bit.
I wrote 2 doctor degrees, and one was in Spanish and the other one was in English and Portuguese. So yeah, that's fun.
No, that's phenomenal, man. I really don't have anything more. This was really a fascinating conversation for me. And I think the pleasure is all mine meeting you today. I do hope that after the podcast, we do keep in touch. And when I get back to Berlin, I'll come up north and visit you.
Let me know. I'm really glad for this invitation and wanted to explain a little bit about becoming a leader and sharing knowledge, sharing opportunities. I think that's about becoming a leader.
I think you've gotten your message through very well. I wrote a book called Masterful Coaching. I was thinking if we could do something together with coaching. I had 2 ideas. One is teaching people like yourself. Could we make a joint venture with you in terms of coaching doctors, not only to be better doctors, but to build bigger practices? We know a lot about coaching and mentoring and being a super boss. You know a lot about being a doctor, and also you know something about coaching and mentoring. It seems like they might be able to create some kind of business that combines our expert secrets and your expert secrets.
Yeah.
That struck me as being something we could potentially do together. Secondly, you might at a certain point be interested in yourself in coaching and mentoring, because as I said, you probably only realized 20% of your potential so far.
Thank you. Nice. That's nice. I think that could be a way to go ahead. And I have many colleagues that tell me this. They tell me, you could be a coach, or have you studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? No, these things I haven't studied yet, maybe, but I know many people and I can help people grow. That's true. That's what I do very good.
Yeah, I was saying maybe we could create some kind of business where we help doctors become coaches.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Help doctors become coaches. Yeah, we can talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I think you've learned something about that maybe other people don't know. And we know something about it that maybe you don't know. So if you combine those 2 things, right now you're in this transition period, we might be able to work together on something, start something. We're also going to be doing a masterclass on coaching pretty soon, a weekly masterclass. So it might be good to have a follow-up call to this to explore these ideas if you're interested.
I'll be glad to take part of it.
Okay, I'll follow up in a couple of weeks, and let's try to set up a call to explore this a little bit further. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Alberto, a pleasure having you today as our guest. Wonderful conversation. And for everyone listening, until the next time, I'll see you then. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.